This bulletin proudly brought to you in association with Alex Campbell's Menswear.
Tonight on the South Today, if you're sensitive to wasp stings, be careful down south as the wasp season has begun in Southland. Astronomy buffs heard about potentially destructive asteroids orbiting near the Earth at a recent Southern conference. And the Visual Impairment Charitable Trust of Aotearoa, or VICTA, is running a series of workshops following recent changes to Dunedin's traffic system. Kia ora, good evening, I'm Daryl Baser. Flurries of black and yellow pests are starting to appear around Southland as the wasp season starts. Invercargill beekeeper Jeff Scott is being kept busy with call-outs to eradicate the noxious pest and says there should be financial assistance available for those who can't afford the service.
They look like small honeybees at the moment, and that's where people can be quite confused. And a lot of people see a wasp nest and they think they've only just made it, but when they've seen it, it's been there for a while, trust me.
Invercargill's bee man Jeff Scott is being kept busy by a flurry of call-outs to properties around Southland where aggressive wasps have taken up home. Usually by this time the wasp season is starting to slow down, but Scott says this year is turning out to be a slow starter.
Because everything's been late and different, even the bees have had a bad season, bumblebees, butterflies, the whole lot. So this would normally be happening in November, but now because it's such a bad season it's happening late, and my biggest worry is that's now going to go through to the winter.
Sorting out the nuisance is not the only thing clients have had to deal with. Scott says it's not uncommon for people to be unable to afford the cost of extermination. And a Southland Bee Society, which Scott is a member of, believes there should be more financial assistance available to people.
I personally think, especially with a lot of older people, that when you go there that can't afford it, that WINS should be able to help them or the council should be able to help them, but that's something that a few of us are working on now to try and get an answer to. The
Southland District Council says pest control is a responsibility of the property owner, and it has not considered funding wasp control as current legislation does not require it and the rates do not cover it. The Ministry of Social Development says support is available for urgent and unexpected bills, which can include pest control. Scott says as well as a risk to humans, wasps can damage property once they start making a hive, which in some cases can be incredibly large.
Back in around 2016 on Mill Road, and that was 2.75 cubic metres. So that was huge.
Anyone wanting assistance to remove a wasp nest from their property can contact Scott through the Southland District Council's website. In Invercargill, the South Today.
Cheaper fuel could be on the way for motorists as the government looks to stimulate competition at the pump. The government has released details of the fuel market bill and is set to discuss it with industry players in the coming weeks. Energy Minister Megan Woods says the bill will make it easier for discount operators like Gull and NPD to compete against larger players. The move follows a Commerce Commission study that found a lack of competition is allowing some companies to make excessive profits. Changes in the draft fuel market bill are set to include requiring retail fuel sites to display premium fuel prices on forecourt price boards, providing a dispute resolution scheme, and more transparent wholesale pricing regime requiring fuel suppliers to publicly post the prices they sell to wholesale customers at storage terminals. Woods says ministers have written to fuel companies urging them to take preemptive action over the issue. Last weekend, astronomy buffs got to hear about potentially destructive asteroids orbiting near the Earth. The Astronomical Society's annual camp near Ashburton featured asteroid expert Alan Gilmore from the Mount John Observatory as a keynote speaker.
The biggest effect, apart from the local devastation, is throwing up dust into the atmosphere and dimming the sun for a year or two, and that would cause crop failures or food shortages globally.
The description of a potential asteroid impact. The Astronomical Society's annual camp near Ashburton last weekend, called Stardate South Island 2020, heard from asteroid expert Alan Gilmore, who's been using the Mount John Observatory in Tekapo since 1973 to track asteroids whose orbits take them near Earth.
We don't discover these objects ourselves. Our equipment just doesn't cover enough sky. So we follow up objects that have been found by search programs. They're mostly in Arizona and Hawaii. They're special telescopes with wide fields of view, and they find these objects and then they immediately report them to the Minor Planet Centre, which is based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The Minor Planet Centre puts new discoveries onto its website immediately, and we endeavour to follow up objects that are accessible to us from Mount John.
Gilmore says there's over 1,000 potentially hazardous asteroids that would cause temporary but destructive change in weather across the globe if they collided with the Earth. While none are set to collide with the Earth over the next 200 years, one will come close in 9 years' time.
And it has a name Apophis after an Egyptian god of destruction, and that one in 2029, April the 14th New Zealand time, will pass 28,000 kilometres from the Earth. Now that object is about 300 metres across, so that currently is the most threatening.
Unfortunately for those attending last week's camp, rain clouds at night prevented stargazing for most of the weekend, with the astronomers having to make do with solar observations during the day. Near Ashburton, the South Today.
Bunches of larger-than-life flamboyant flowers have sprung up in Dunedin's Civic Centre Plaza. The Otago Daily Times understands these giant flowers, adjacent to the Octagon, are a late addition to the enhancements in the central city. The Dunedin City Council says the flowers have been placed around the Civic Plaza as part of the Octagon experience and are designed to create a walkway that adds interest to the area. The council says these vibrant blooms showcase the importance of our city lanes as vital pedestrian links. The flowers are set to be brightening up the heritage lanes until early April. Visual Impairment Charitable Trust of Aotearoa, or VICTA, is running a series of workshops following recent and ongoing changes to Dunedin's traffic system. Author Lindley Hood is a spokesperson for people with visual impairments and says being without a car can be a shock for some people. How do you cope getting around a city with a changing landscape without a car? A panel discussion was held in Dunedin yesterday to discuss the topic.
What do you do if you go to do some baking because somebody's coming to visit and you find you're out of butter and you're not driving? What do you do?
The meeting was organised by VICTA, or the Visual Impairment Charitable Trust of Aotearoa. The organisation's spokesperson, Lindley Hood, hopes to shed more light on the issue, particularly for people who are having trouble with the changes to the city's roads and other issues.
And it's reaching out to all the people who are so upset about the closure of the Octagon, and also to all the people who are wondering whether they'll pass their driver's licence the next time they get it tested, and all those worries people have of how on earth will we cope if we're not driving.
Hood advocates for bus use, saying people shouldn't be prejudiced against the city's bus fleet unless they've taken a trip recently.
A lot of people with the complaints haven't actually tried the buses. They're very clean and comfortable now, and they have kneeling buses for people in wheelchairs and people in walking frames, and lovely bus drivers.
And Hood says some of the city's bus drivers provide another friendly face in their day.
Because old people who live on their own, they have contact with the friends and family, but it's the random conversations with total strangers or semi-strangers, like your bus driver or your hairdresser or whatever. So you've got to get out and about.
Around 30 to 40 people attended yesterday's meeting. The second in the series of talks run by Victor is scheduled for March 25th, when organisers say a group of transport policy makers will be on the panel taking questions from members of the public. In Dunedin, the South Today. Still to come on the South Today, we look in at a hotel being built in central Dunedin, and we have the latest edition of Global Insight. See you after the break.
Garage Dunedin, delivering quality, stylish garage doors in Dunedin for over 17 years. New doors, replacement doors and maintenance are all part of Garage quality service. Garage Dunedin offers a full range of modern quality doors to suit any home. Come visit the team.
A poorly maintained heat pump can lose up to 35% of its output. The Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner team are experts. Their specially developed chemical wash is totally biodegradable. Call Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner and get the job done by the professionals.
If you're at risk of developing melanoma skin cancer, you owe it to yourself to have a mole map. Mole map is coming to your area. Phone today to make an appointment. It could save your life.
If you're suffering from sciatica, lower back pain, hips and pelvis and knees, this technique will work wonders for you. The energy flow is transmitting through the muscles. Come and see Sunny Chin.
You've seen us in the street, now find us online. Check out shopon.org.nz. We have all sorts of treasures, from retro and vintage clothing to antiques, homewares and accessories. New items added every week. We're open 24/7.
Step into Ross Cafe, located at Ross Home in North East Valley. We have a great range of hot and cold food, friendly service and a warm atmosphere that you are sure to enjoy. We look forward to serving you soon at Ross Cafe.
St. Pet Cremations knows that losing a pet is like losing a family member, and we have many special ways for you to keep their memory dear to your heart. From caskets, remembrance pendants to remembrance fairs. Call Heaven Sent Pet Cremations today.
No mai no, welcome back. Construction of a boutique hotel in Dunedin's Philil Street is well underway. A crane has placed precast concrete panels into the framework, creating walls and floors on the building site. Dunedin property investors Frank and Karen Casimir were granted resource consent in 2018 to build the four-storey 27-unit facility with a manager's residence and ground floor cafe. When completed, the building will be about 12 metres high, with glass walls at the front and rear of the building, and the front and glass walls at the front and rear are due to have artwork printed on them. And in today's edition of Global Insight, Professor Robert Patman says US presidential hopeful Bernie Sanders is not an extremist by international standards. The Dunedin-based international affairs expert says Sanders, who is labelled as a dangerous socialist by opponents, would be considered mainstream in the United Kingdom or German politics. Despite the label, Sanders' popularity is growing in the US ahead of the November presidential elections.
The presidential elections are in November. Is the result already a given? Are US voters too afraid of anything that smacks of socialism to vote for Sanders, or does he actually stand a chance against Trump?
Oh, I think all the polling evidence suggests that out of 50 recent polls, Sanders won 47 against Mr. Trump, according to polling projections. I think Mr. Sanders is a strong candidate. Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin have both expressed their preference for Mr. Sanders getting the nomination. But there's a bit of misinformation here, Bruce. Just because Mr. Trump says he's delighted that Mr. Sanders is going to possibly get the nomination, is the front runner, that doesn't mean he actually believes that. It may be that by bigging up, to use the colloquial phrase, Mr. Sanders, he's causing mayhem within the Democratic establishment. It's no secret that the Democratic establishment, if you read newspapers as I do, like Washington Post and the New York Times, there's tremendous antipathy and hostility towards Mr. Sanders. He's described as a democratic socialist, but actually in German or British terms, he would be on the right wing of either the SPD or the UK Labour Party. He doesn't want to nationalise anything. He wants to basically introduce healthcare as a universal right, which is actually the case in every other developed country other than the United States. And he also wants to move over to the German and Scandinavian system where all, if they have the qualifications, all prospective students wishing to go to university get their first degree free. I think Bernie Sanders has surprised a lot of people so far. And he's got a lot of energy, and he's a very shrewd political operator. And he pulled off a bit of a masterstroke last weekend, because people have been raking up his past about visiting Cuba, going to Nicaragua. The news story got out that Mr. Putin had been quietly supporting the Bernie Sanders campaign. And Sanders was briefed by the US intelligence on this. A month later, the story broke in the media. And Mr. Sanders immediately came out and said, I am no friend of Mr. Putin. He's an autocratic thug. And he should not, and he said, if I have become president, Russia will never again interfere in US elections. That made Mr. Trump look like a Putin lackey who's incapable of ever criticizing Mr. Putin, which gels with a lot of American perceptions of Mr. Trump. And it's going to be a fascinating contest between now and the remaining months we have ahead of us.
Certainly is. Thank you, Robert. And thank you for watching. Catch us next time on Global Insight. Ka kite anō.
And you can view the full interview with Professor Patman online at odt.co.nz. After the break on the South Today, the University of Otago says it'll welcome Chinese students with open arms as soon as the government drops the travel ban. And how will the Highlanders go at home against the rebels? Find out after the break. See you soon.
Step into Shop on Carroll and discover a shop full of treasures. We have a fantastic range of vintage and retro clothes, upmarket clothing labels, collectible items, beautiful jewellery, quality linen and the best range of vintage haberdashery.
Every reason, every season, we're proud to dress the region. Alex Campbell menswear, it fits.
Garrador Dunedin, delivering quality, stylish garage doors in Dunedin for over 17 years. New doors, replacement doors and maintenance are all part of Garrador's quality service. Garrador Dunedin offers a full range of modern quality doors to suit any home. Come visit the team.
Lana Castle is proud to showcase their new retail space. Simply purchase an annual garden pass for year-round access to the garden, cafe and gift shop, or apply for a host card giving you full access to the castle, ballroom, cafe, gift shop and garden when accompanied by a full paying guest. Check out the website for full terms and conditions. If you're at risk of developing melanoma skin cancer, you owe it to yourself to have a mole map. Mole map is coming to your area. Phone today to make an appointment. It could save your life.
A poorly maintained heat pump can lose up to 35% of its output. The Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner team are experts. Their specially developed chemical wash is totally biodegradable. Call Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner and get the job done by the professionals.
Heaven Sent Pet Cremations knows that losing a pet is like losing a family member, and we have many special ways for you to keep their memory dear to your heart. From caskets, remembrance pendants to remembrance spheres. Call Heaven Sent Pet Cremations today.
Thanks for staying with us. About 200 students enrolled for the Otago University this year are still in China and unable to resume studies this week. This comes as universities plead with the government for an exemption to the coronavirus travel ban. New Zealand's borders are at present closed to all foreign travellers coming from mainland China, but universities are asking for an exemption for tertiary students. The University of Otago says it's working closely with the local health board, the Ministry of Health and its own experts. The university says it's ready to take in these students if the government agrees to an exemption. It's unlikely the government will announce any change to the travel bans before Cabinet meets on Monday. The Highlanders have had 3 tough games and now say it's time for a refresh. The Highlanders have made 4 changes to their starting forward pack to face the Rebels tomorrow night at Forsyth Bar Stadium. The Dunedin-based side is coming off a tough loss to the South Island rivals, the Crusaders, last week. Coach Aaron Major says the changes are a chance to re-energise the side rather than a reflection of form. The Southern franchise sits at the bottom of the New Zealand Conference after 4 weeks of competition, including a bye. And now recapping tonight's top stories on the South Today. If you're sensitive to wasp stings, be very careful down south as the wasp season has begun in Southland and some people are struggling to afford pest control. Astronomy buffs have heard about potentially destructive asteroids orbiting near the Earth at a recent conference in the South Island. And the Visual Impairment Charitable Trust of Aotearoa, or VICTA, is running a series of workshops following recent and ongoing changes to Dunedin's traffic system. Time now for a look at what's happening in tomorrow's Otago Daily Times. We welcome Mr. Craig Page. G'day, Craig.
Good evening, Daryl. Yeah, it's all going Middlemarch tonight and we're up there to capture it all. There's a public meeting to discuss Torrey Gorge Railway's decision to no longer take the excursion train all the way to Middlemarch. They're only going to take it as far as Pukerangi now, citing it's the time involved. A lot of cruise ship passengers say it's too long, so then you've got not going on the trips. And a lack of passengers and of course cost as well, and as you can imagine the residents of Middlemarch are not particularly happy about that, and tonight they get a chance to talk face to face with train management in a public meeting up there, promising to be pretty volatile from what we can hear. So we've got a reporter up there and photographer and we'll have full coverage on that meeting tomorrow.
Some ruffled feathers for sure.
Yeah, and understandably so, you know, it brings a lot of people to the town, they spend a bit of money as well, so yeah, big loss for them and they're fighting, trying to keep that. We've got a nice follow-up story about young Harry Finch, who's got a type of cerebral palsy, which has contracted his leg muscles and prevented him from walking. We've had a lot of stories on Harry over the last year or so. There was a big fundraising campaign last year to get him to the US for some surgery. Of course, he's back now, and things are looking up, actually. He's starting to walk on his own using a walking frame. Getting into mischief, his mother said as well. So a nice story there, and a big year for him and his twin brother Ollie. They're starting school and not too far away, so that's well worth a read. And Sports Lift out on a Friday as well, so plenty of reading in that. Got the White Ferns playing India in their 2020 World Cup cricket match this evening. It's going to be an interesting game, really. The winner of that can almost assure themselves a spot in the next round. If we lose, we're on a collision course with Australia in a must-win match next week, and they're never nice to play Australia in must-win games. Super Rugby as well, we've got plenty on there. The Highlanders, slow start as you mentioned, lost 3 games against 3 top sides, so the theory being things should get easier. We will see. We talked to Josh Ioane, who's been converted really from a 10 to a number 12 this season, and we've chatted about him about the change of game plan for him in that position. And the golf as well continues in Queenstown. Our sports editor Steve Hepburn's up there rubbing shoulders with all the who's who of New Zealand sport this weekend with the Pro-Am on today, living in luxury. So we've got plenty of coverage tomorrow and over the weekend on that as well.
Brilliant, all that and more.
Thanks, Darren.
Thanks, Craig, appreciate that. Time now for a look at the weather.
Tonight's weather proudly brought to you by Mole Map.
Beginning with the southern view, a moody sky above a central Dunedin police station. Now looking at the situation, another cold front arrives tomorrow with more rain as a warm northwesterly airflow is pushed away by a colder southwesterly later in the day. Starting off at the northwest of the South Island, Greymouth and Westport are looking at cloudy skies, showers and 21 degrees. Across to the northeast, Nelson and Blenheim can expect a cloud or two and 24 degrees. Heading down to Canterbury, Kaikoura can expect the odd cloud and 26 degrees. Christchurch should prepare for similar conditions and also 26, while Ashburton should expect grey skies and 24 degrees. To the southern towns, those in the Catlins, Balclusa, Lumsden and Gore can all expect a southwesterly change with rain. The Catlins and Balclusa aim for 19, Lumsden and Gore should reach 17. Heading to central Otago, most centres in this area are due for fresh northwesterlies and mostly cloudy skies. Wanaka 21, Alexandra heads for 24 degrees, Queenstown 23, and Te Anau you have a southwesterly change, rain and 16 degrees. To the northern towns, on the coast, Timaru and Oamaru are due to have fresh northerlies and high cloud, Timaru 25, Oamaru 23. Looking inland, Twizel and Omarama are due for fresh northwesterlies, mostly cloudy skies and 23 for both of you. In Dunedin, cloudy skies tonight with an overnight low of 12 degrees. A mix of sunny periods with the odd cloud tomorrow before a southerly change which brings showers, and some showers tomorrow night with cold southwesterly change, a high of 19 and a low of 9. Becoming fine and sunny on Saturday with cool southwesterlies dying out and northeasterlies developing, a high of 15 and a low of 10 degrees. And in Invercargill, cloudy tonight with an overnight low of 12 degrees. Cloudy tomorrow with rain developing during the morning and northwesterlies freshening before a southerly change arrives, a high of 16 and a low of 9. Showers clearing on Saturday for fresh cool southwesterlies decreasing slowly, a high of 14 and a low of 8. And that's all from the South Today team for this Thursday. For the latest news from the southern region, head online to odt.co.nz and follow Channel 39 on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks for joining us. Have a great evening. Ka kite anō.
This bulletin proudly brought to you in association with Alex Campbell's Menswear.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.